Okay, let's unpack this. Have you ever encountered a word that seems, really straightforward, but actually holds this surprising depth?
Happens all the time.
Right. Well, today, we're doing a deep dive into just such a word, anodyne.
Ah, anodyne. Good one.
Thanks.
And what's truly fascinating here, I think, is how the single word anodyne, it sort of bridges these vastly different concepts, from actual physical relief to some quite complex social dynamics. So our mission really is to pull out the most important nuggets of knowledge from all this stuff.
Yeah, give you a comprehensive understanding and hopefully maybe some aha moments along the way.
That's the goal.
So let's start with what's probably its most literal definition, the one most people might know. Merriam-Webster defines anodyne as an adjective meaning serving to alleviate pain. Pretty simple. And then as a noun, something that soothes, calms, or comforts.
Or, even more literally, a drug that allays pain.
That seems pretty clear-cut, right? Pain relief.
It does, on the surface.
Yeah.
But when you dig into the historical context, it gets wild.
Oh, so?
Well, historically, anodyne was actually a very common term for pain-killing drugs, like really common, especially before the 20th century.
Okay. Before we call them analgesics or painkillers.
Exactly. And Wikipedia points out that back in the 19th century, primary anodynes included things like, opium, obviously, but also henbane, hemlock.
Wait, hemlock? Like the poison hemlock?
The very same. Also tobacco, nightshade, even chloroform.
Wow. That's quite a spectrum. And pretty different from, say, ibuprofen.
Totally different. It really puts pain relief back then into perspective, doesn't it? Shows a huge shift in, pharmacology.
Definitely.
And there was even this stuff called anodyne balsam, made of Castile soap, camphor, saffron, spirit of wine.
What did that do?
Apparently used not just for easing pain, but also for helping discharge diseased tissue.
Huh. Okay.
So the key insight there is anodyne started as this really potent, sometimes frankly dangerous medical term for stopping pain.
But it's not just about medicine, is it? I saw one source, Word Genius, sort of broadened it out.
Yeah, they did. They suggested that basically anything that can soothe a situation or, bring joy could be considered anodyne.
Like watching a sunset.
Or, their example, watching cute cat videos on YouTube, which, let's be honest, can be pretty soothing.
Can't argue with that. So, okay, it's not just a pill. It can be a feeling, a comfort, a cat video.
Right.
So we've got the physical pain relief side, the sort of general comfort side. But you mentioned it gets more complex. There's another meaning.
Yes, and this is where it gets, I think, really interesting for a lot of people. Anodyne also works as an adjective meaning not likely to offend or arouse tensions, or just simply innocuous. You see this definition pop up in Merriam-Webster again. Word Up, App, Word Genius, they all list it.
Okay, that feels like a huge leap. How do you get from stopping physical pain to just, not making waves socially?
Yeah, it seems like a jump, but the etymology is the key, really.
The word origin.
Exactly. It comes from the Greek odynos, and that meant free from pain, but also causing no pain, harmless, allaying pain.
Ah, okay, so harmless was in there from the start.
Pretty much. It's been used both ways, noun and adjective, since the 16th century. The modern sense, though, the one about avoiding arguments or contention, that's thought to maybe have French roots.
Interesting.
So the idea subtly shifted from avoiding physical harm or discomfort to avoiding, social or emotional friction.
So the core idea is harmlessness, which then got applied more broadly.
Basically, yeah. Not causing any kind of distress, even social distress.
Which brings up a really interesting point, this tension. If something is inoffensive, does that automatically mean it's, bland, boring?
That's the million-dollar question, isn't it?
Because, I could pick a movie that everyone likes. That's an anodyne choice.
Right.
It avoids a fight over what to watch. But it doesn't mean the movie itself is bland.
Good point.
And I saw this reflected in a Reddit discussion. One user specifically said, and I'm quoting here, bland is not how I would use that word. Their point was an anodyne choice is just one made not to provoke dissent. It doesn't have to lack appeal itself.
That's a valid interpretation, definitely. But other sources push back a little.
Yeah.
Yeah, the Word Up app, for instance, describes anodyne as suggesting something is dull because it doesn't cause strong emotions.
Ah, okay. So lack of strong emotion equals dull.
That seems to be the implication there. And Henry E. Hooper's wordsmith actually lists bland right there as a synonym, explicitly.
Huh. So we've got conflicting takes.
We do, and it really makes you, the listener, think, doesn't it? Where is that line? Can something be truly inoffensive without also being a bit bland?
Or do they often just go hand in hand?
Think about, I don't know, standard elevator music. Muzak. It's designed to be perfectly anodyne, right? To absolutely not offend anyone's taste.
Yeah, you barely notice it.
Exactly. But you're probably not downloading it later, are you? It is pretty bland. So it's a tricky balance.
It really is. Okay, so maybe seeing how it's used in different real-world contexts will help us sort of get a better feel for these nuances.
Yeah, let's look at some examples.
All right, how about architecture criticism? That sounds specific.
It is. Catherine Slesser, writing for Arch Daily, she voices this concern about, let me get the quote right, obliging PR minions and biddable publishers churning out infinite anodyne oeuvres complete.
Oeuvre complete? Complete works.
Right, complete works of architects. And her use of anodyne there suggests these publications are, well, unchallenging, maybe lacking deep context or purpose. They just present the work without ruffling any feathers.
So the opposite of impactful, provocative criticism.
Precisely. It's a negative use, suggesting that aiming only to be inoffensive leads to a lack of substance or critical bite in a creative field.
Okay, that makes sense. What about literature? I saw C.S. Lewis came up.
Yeah, Mere Inkling Press discusses his take, and it's fascinating because he sees both sides.
Both sides of anodyne?
Yeah. In a good sense, anodyne writing can be genuinely comforting, alleviating pain. They give the example of Ellen Montgomery's poetry, you know, Anne of Green Gables author. Her poetry was described as an anodyne to the negative poetry of many of the WWI poets. It offered real solace.
Okay, so that's the positive, soothing side, like the cat videos.
Exactly. But then Lewis also acknowledged the second sense, where something is so inoffensive it just becomes boring. He apparently called it the cafeteria pudding of language.
Huh. Cafeteria pudding, that's evocative.
Isn't it? And Lewis himself used the word quite powerfully in the Screwtape Letters.
How so?
Well, Screwtape observes that hatred is also a great anodyne for shame, and that drink can be an anodyne when he is dull and weary.
Wow, so using it for things that numb pain but are actually destructive.
Exactly. It shows how anodyne can apply to anything that temporarily dulls an unpleasant feeling, whether it's genuinely good for you, like comforting poetry, or ultimately harmful, like hatred or excessive drinking, a false comfort.
That's a really subtle and powerful use of the word. Okay, let's shift gears a bit. Politics. How does anodyne show up there?
Well, Henry E. Hooper's wordsmith offers an observation, and we're just reporting the observation here.
Right, neutrally.
Neutrally, he notes that messages on U.S. House of Representatives Facebook pages used to be quite anodyne, you know, full of birthday wishes, info about constituent services, that kind of thing.
Okay, pretty uncontroversial stuff.
Very. But he observes that the tone shifted, moving towards, in his words, highly charged, provocative, and incendiary language.
So a definite move away from the anodyne.
A very stark move away, according to that source. It just illustrates how the style of communication changed in that specific sphere.
Got it. What about, like, modern pop culture products? Does it pop up there?
It does, in some surprising places. There's a band called ATLS. Apparently they make brutally heavy yet melodic music.
Okay. Heavy metal.
Something like that.
Yeah.
And they named one of their songs Anodyne. They called it a cathartic anthem.
Huh. A heavy, cathartic song called Anodyne. What do you make of that? Soothing through intensity? Maybe relief from pain?
Could be. It plays with the word's meaning, doesn't it? And then you see it in product names, like Anodyne Coffee.
Anodyne coffee. Is it meant to be calming?
Yeah.
Or just not offensive coffee?
Hard to say without tasting it. And video games, too. There's Anodyne Remastered, Anodyne 2,
right,
maybe suggesting a soothing escape. Or maybe just an innocuous, easy-to-like game title. It seems like these uses often play on either the calming aspect or the simple, non-threatening, inoffensive angle.
It's really versatile. There was even a fictional example, wasn't there? Star Trek.
Oh, yeah. That was a fun one from the Mere Inkling source, the Anodyne Relay.
What was that again?
Secrets and Starships, described as being perfectly reliable during normal, routine operations, but notoriously prone to malfunctioning right at critical moments.
Huh. That's brilliant. Like the most ironically named component ever. Perfectly safe.
Yeah.
Until it really matters.
Exactly. Adds a layer of, well, fictional irony to the word.
So bringing all these different examples together, architecture, literature, politics, coffee, Star Trek, what's the big picture?
I think if you connect all these dots, it becomes really clear that anodyne is it's a powerful reminder of how much context shapes meaning.
Yeah.
It just highlights how one little word can carry both very literal weight, like actual pain relief, and all this metaphorical weight.
Spanning medicine, art, politics.
Social interactions. And it often hints at either, genuine comfort, real relief, or this kind of deliberate, sometimes maybe even problematic neutrality or blandness.
So wrapping this deep dive up, what does this all mean for you listening?
Yeah, what's the takeaway?
Well, our exploration of anodyne has hopefully shown you a word that's, frankly, much richer than it might first appear.
Definitely more than just painkiller or inoffensive.
Right. It can describe a literal drug, a truly comforting presence like that sunset or the poem, and also something maybe intentionally bland, designed just not to cause friction. Context is everything.
Which leads us to, I suppose, a final thought for you to mull over, a provocative question maybe.
Okay, let's hear it.
In your own experiences, think about where you find things that are truly anodyne. In that first sense, things that bring genuine comfort, real relief. What are they for you? And then where do you encounter anodyne in that second sense? Something designed pretty much just to avoid friction, to be inoffensive.
And maybe. What's the difference in how those two kinds of anodyne actually feel or impact you?
Exactly. Where's the line between soothing and just smoothing things over? Something to think about.